almost completely taken over Morganville, and the founder has been gravely injured and is likely to die in the coming days. There's no clear way as to how to kill the Draug, and so everyone is scrambling around trying to find out any means of being able to bring them down. In the 12th installment of the Morganville Vampire series, Black Dawn, we follow basically all the same characters that we got perspectives from in Last Breath, with the addition of a couple other perspectives that we typically wouldn't really see, and I don't think that we will really see much going further into the series. So similar to the structure of how Last Breath was, this novel does contain not only Claire's perspective, but the perspectives of many characters that have massive, massive stakes within this story, including Shane, Eve, Michael, Oliver, Amile, a character named Naomi, a character named Hannah, who is the police chief of the town of Morganville. My thoughts on this one were that it pretty much kind of felt a lot of the same as Last Breath. I didn't absolutely hate it. I felt like it was really good, honestly, as far as trying to figure out how exactly to bring down the Draug. The overall tension of the story, though, is very, very slow building. I feel like with Last Breath, a lot of things happened in a very short amount of time where it was very tense-filled throughout the entirety of the story. And Black Dawn, there were some pretty tense parts in the story, but the overall feeling of the story was just kind of building and building and building up to essentially the end of this story, which is the big boss battle, if you will, of the entire phase of the Morganville Vampire series at this point. And I feel like that it kind of bogged down the story in some ways because there was just so much build up to seeing how this was going to all turn out that I felt like it just kind of made the story go a little slower at times than I thought I would have liked. And there are some other kind of more relationship-esque problems that arise because of things that happened in Last Breath that are explored more in this one, because there's a lot of lull points within the story where in those lull points some of the more relationship-based issues between some of the characters are brought up and are discussed and are essentially like figured out to a sense where things can kind of move on from there, so we're not focusing on that part for eons in the book. I will say one of the things I felt like was kind of dragging too is there was constant repetition of information that we already know about certain characters or things that have happened again, like there was in Bite Club, which was book 10. I felt like in Black Dawn, a lot of the instances where there was kind of this repetition of information, it was unnecessary and just seemed to be really kind of annoying because even though these books may have come out within like maybe a year, 2 years between each other, readers would still be able to remember quite a bit of what happened in the last book, to where you wouldn't need that constant repetition of information that we are given in this. But I guess that must be kind of a YA staple thing, or was a YA staple kind of writing tick thing that was brought up in the early 2010s. I'm not really certain on that, but I feel like with a lot of the more young adult vampire literature that is around, that is a very common thing to see, is that repetition of information in subsequent novels after a first novel in a series. To be completely honest, I don't have very many thoughts on this one as I did with Last Breath, and I feel like that's because these books were so very similar. I mean, their overall stories were very different in terms of what exactly was going on, but there wasn't really a lot that exactly happened. I felt like there wasn't as much that happened in this one as there was in Last Breath, but what did happen in here was basically a lot of understanding how we were going to find out how to bring down the Draug. I will say I think this is one of the slower books of the series because there isn't really a whole lot that goes on until probably the last, I don't know, maybe 50% of it. I feel like there's just a lot of building up to understanding how to bring down the Draug, and then when shit hits the fan, it hits very hard and it is stinky. And that's pretty much what happened in the last quarter of the book, is that it hit the fan and it caused all kinds of nastiness to happen. And I will say I was really shocked by a lot of what happened by the end of this book, because there were a couple of things that I didn't remember having happened when I had first read this novel when I was in high school that I saw happen this time, and it greatly shocked me. Like, I actually had real physical reactions to some of the things that happened in this because they were things that completely caught me off guard. And it was fascinating to see the kind of things that Rachel Caine used at the end of this book for some of the characters that are involved with it, because I wouldn't have expected things to happen to some characters in this book that happened, and I was pleasantly surprised, I guess. I mean, overall, it's a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I felt like it wasn't really as bad as I thought it would have been, because I felt like with how slow it was going to end up being like really, really bad. But I think that basically by the time I got to the real shit hits the fan kind of stuff, it did pick up a lot, and I felt like it kind of redeemed itself in a lot of ways. Like, I was pretty solid on this being like a 3-star for a while, but when I actually got to the point where there is a lot of things happening and there's actual like action going on, there was some pretty redeeming things happening. And I feel like one of those redeeming qualities is that Rachel Caine is able to construct really good action-based scenes involving very close combat. It's not like very expansive stuff, but close combat with like stakes and knives and things of that nature, I feel like Rachel Caine does a really good job of, because this is more of a kind of close combative kind of story. This isn't like it deals with magic. It doesn't deal with like melee things or with arrows or bows and all that stuff. It's very much like your knives and guns at a short distance or within point blank range and things of that nature. And it just feels like it's really fun to read because the action scenes do keep you going throughout the story. And I feel like that really kind of helped with how my overall enjoyment of this one ended up being. Anyway, if you guys have also read Black Dawn in the Morganville Vampire series, leave me your thoughts on this down in the comments below. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this review of Black Dawn. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit the button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.